Fortunate circumstances tonight. Very, very excited to watch, my Spurs take on the Knicks. And first and foremost, congratulations to the Knicks. Always a great franchise and something to be proud of. They, hold going to hold up a trophy for the first time in many, many, many years. Um, Big win for them and their franchise. Um, was excited to see my Spurs play in a big game for the first time in several years, and um, not the outcome that everyone was hoping for, especially myself or all Spurs fans. But I will say that, like the caption that's on there, just a step in the right direction for the Spurs, and very, very glad that um, it was a game that was close. The Spurs had the lead, and get into that in a second. But yeah, a little sad just because. Um, there was no way I thought that the Spurs would lose after beating the Thunder. Um, all came down to just minor things that the Spurs will work on. I know that they will, and it'll prepare them for the playoffs later in the season, and getting into the later rounds in May and in June, and hopefully making it to a conference finals or a finals, and going from there. But a lot of takeaways, a lot of good things, a lot of bad things. Good things is the Spurs can score. The Spurs can keep up with any team in the NBA. Games like this are good for the Spurs. It shows that they belong, that they're here to stay. The bad news is that they're still developing and they're still they struggle with maintaining a lead. You have an 11 or 9 or 11 point lead, and late in the third quarter, and a minute into the fourth you're down 5 or 4. Just things like that can't happen. I mean, the Knicks went on an incredible run, almost 30, 38 to like 17 run or something like that, and um, just didn't see anybody take over for the Spurs the way they did against the Thunder, or the way somebody did. Wemby hit several shots in a row, and then he was taken out, which was a little confusing. Darren Fox hit a couple of shots coming out of the third quarter or halftime, excuse me, and after that it was just a couple of misses, and then especially in the fourth quarter of the Spurs, it was just a lid on the basket. Harrison Barnes, it's a little scary that he struggled so much as one of the best 3 point shooters in the league from the corner. Doesn't really miss, and in this tournament, at least in Vegas, these 2 games, he was abysmal from three. It was almost sad to look at. It was short, it was long, rattling in and out. Just nothing was falling for him. I mean, yeah, he would get to the basket, he would, you know, rebound, he would do everything else. It was just, not. I guess these last 2 games weren't, you know, games that shots were falling for him. But very impressed with Dylan Harper. Hit a lot of threes tonight, playing really, really well. Impressed with Stephon Castle. Poor guy didn't get any foul calls. Throughout these last 2 games, I mean, he had a huge open sore on his arm. Last game, he had a plug in his nose, bloody lip, and no fouls were called for him. Going to the basket, but that's all right. Just excited. Sad that they lost, of course, but excited that these Spurs get the opportunity to continue to play in big games, and now putting the league on notice, and reminding me of the days of myself growing up when I was you know 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, going all the way back to when I was born, being able to see the championship in 99, 03, 05, 07, and just all those playoff runs, consistency, winning games, winning big games, and being a team that nobody wanted to play. The Spurs are going to be a team that's going to be good for the next 15 years, and I really hope that all the right moves are made to keep them that way. And to keep them good and to keep them playing well. You hope that Harper develops the way he's supposed to, Castle develops the way he's supposed to, Luke Cornett develops the way he's supposed to. Wemby didn't look that great tonight. Didn't look his greatest. Made it, like I said, those 3 shots in a row, and then it was just that was it. Nobody took over the game for the Spurs. They got obliterated on the offensive glass. It was sad to see that. That's the reason the Knicks won the game. I mean, OG Anunoby, great player, came in, made a bunch of shots, but the Spurs, that can't happen. Getting obliterated on the glass like that. Just if the Knicks had 3 chances every single time they came down the floor, they were going to score, and you weren't going to beat them like that. Jalen Brunson, all these guys are too good for that to happen. Um, just too many mistakes. Not being assertive. Not making big shots when you were up 6, 8, 10 at one point, shots that should have gone down that didn't, turnovers at that point that you say, well, we're up 10, so it's okay. And little by little, the Knicks chipped away. And that's something that I feel like these games are going to be important for the Spurs because they won one game against, the favorite to win it all again. And then they lose a game like this against a favorite in the East, which is the Knicks. And I just think that, the Spurs are going to be right there with the best of them. They're going to be there, um, playing well and playing in big games, and they're just going to grow from games like this. You just hope that all the pieces are right and all the pieces are able to be there for them. Um, Luke Cornett, great addition in the offseason. Um, just hoping that everybody clicks together. In a game like today, yeah, they lost. It's okay, but you just hope that they learn from this and they learn what it takes. They learn that the physicality that they had against Oklahoma City can't be, you know, that can't be it. It can't be just, we're going to do it this game and then the next game we're good. We're not going to do it. It doesn't work like that. And it's the NBA. The Knicks have been there the last couple of years. The Thunder just won it all. You're playing against teams that are contenders, and the Spurs are young, and these are games that are good. These are games that are good for them to have, under the belt. And that's why it's such a great thing for Adam Silver and the NBA to have something hosted like this, just so players can experience a playoff atmosphere maybe when they haven't. None of the Spurs, maybe except Keldon when he was a rookie, but none of the Spurs um, have experienced any sort of playoff success. Looking at Harrison Barnes, he's won a championship. Luke Cornett has won a championship with Boston, but other than that, Darren Fox, I think, made it to the first round with the Kings once or twice, but that's about it. Everybody else that's on the Spurs is homegrown, signed, young, and doesn't have that experience that's needed. Um, when you get to games late in May and June that are big games, and these games help prepare a young team like the Spurs to be able to play well in those later, early summer games and get there and get where they want to be. I'm very, very excited for the rest of the season. I know the Spurs are back home on Thursday. Just like I said, it's a tough loss, and I hope that it doesn't hurt the Spurs in the wrong way. They made their money. They made some noise. They put the league on notice. Flew out the Jackals to be there in Las Vegas, the fan section. But yeah, just tough loss against the Knicks. Tough loss tonight, but a game that they'll learn from. A game that they'll learn, how to, the importance of defensive rebounding, the importance of keeping physicality at an all time high, importance of just being able to close out a game and have somebody say, whether it's Castle, Harper, Fox, Wembanyama, Vassell, just, I'm going to get the ball, I'm going to take over, and that's what we're going to do. Didn't see any Lindy Waters, didn't see any Jeremy Sohan, which hurts. Didn't see, David Jones Garcia didn't even suit up, but um, Kelly Olynyk really didn't play. Um, Carter Bryant really didn't play, so it's just, it was a 8 man rotation. Keldon had limited minutes, so just games were played like it was a playoff game, and that's what makes me happy that Mitch Johnson. Other than a couple of things tonight, Mitch Johnson has coached really, really well, and first some of the first big games that he's coached in, at least been the head coach. So again, just very, very excited for what's to come with the Spurs and with their season, but just hoping that they can learn from these games, like I've mentioned several times, and just take this into the rest of the season. They have they can get a win on Thursday and go from there. Just really, really hoping that the Spurs grow, the Spurs learn, the Spurs um, if they play the way that they played against the Thunder and today against the Knicks, they'll be just fine, and they'll be that third or fourth seed in the West, and then they'll be able to go from there. But other than that, just very proud to be a Spurs fan for life. I'll always love my Spurs. I'll always cheer for them whether they're winning or losing. Was excited. It was a big game tonight. Unfortunately, they didn't win, but at the end of the day, it's a privilege to have pressure as a fan. That means your team's good and your team's doing something right. Um, so, yes, just I know I usually post after win, take a little bit of time in between wins. Huge win against the Thunder. Unfortunate tonight that to win the Emirates Cup, they came up just short, but just excited for the future and excited to continue seeing the Spurs how they play, how they come out of this, and just excited for the rest of the season. So go Spurs, go forever, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good night.